Welcome to the B2B Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. We're here to help you grow your business with the one form of marketing that really works.
I'm Bill Bice, and we're here because we believe inside every small business is a big business.
Luke, how are you?
Good, Bill. How are you?
Doing great. So you were just throwing out a question at me that you get asked with some regularity.
Yeah, oftentimes here at Boomtime we present a lot of options, and we think they all work. But sometimes our clients they think it's maybe one or the other. And I get asked a lot, oh, should I focus on email marketing or LinkedIn marketing? Because there's a lot of people on LinkedIn, this and that. And obviously the answer is both, but I think it's interesting why the answer is both. And just for a little context, if you're not doing email or if you're not doing LinkedIn marketing, it's really where the party is right now. There's a lot of people on there. I think, what does this say? 94% of people, I think, 94% of B2B marketers go to LinkedIn to consume content right now. You've seen this with your LinkedIn. We hit that pretty hard, and there's a lot of engagement on there. But we also can't forget about email. And it's a very interesting reason why, especially if you were doing marketing back around when Facebook was still, not terrible. There was a lot of organic reach, but now you don't have so much organic reach. You might have 1 million followers on Facebook, but when you make a post, it's probably not even going to 1% of that. And that's kind of the key issue that we're looking at here.
Yeah, and so fortunately, LinkedIn is not nearly as over. It's not monetized the way that Facebook is, and of course, the context in LinkedIn is right on target for what we're doing in B2B. Lots of people try to do B2B on Facebook, and it's so much harder. Not only because you have to pay to play, but because the context is just wrong. But the way that I look at this issue of LinkedIn and email is they're just different stages in the funnel. It absolutely isn't a one or the other. It's LinkedIn is how we get more people in at the top of the funnel, and then email is the next natural step we need to get them to. And so you can't do just LinkedIn because you're not going to pull people far enough in if you don't then move them over to your website, get them onto your email list, and then keep talking to them. So it's just different stages of the process.
It's different stages. And what I like to point out is fundamentally, you don't own LinkedIn, right? Microsoft owns LinkedIn. And right now, the organic reach is good. And it might stay that way because they make a lot of the revenue from Sales Navigator. And so they might keep that organic reach as an incentive where other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, maybe Instagram, where they cut the organic reach to increase the ad spend of marketers to get to that same reach that they once had, right? They kind of give it to you for a while and they took it away, so make you pay for it. That's how they make all their money. LinkedIn can make money another way, so they might not necessarily do it as much, but the idea is that if fundamentally none of us own LinkedIn, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, and they could take away that reach tomorrow if they wanted to and say, now you have to pay us for it. But the cool thing about email is, and you're exactly right, like LinkedIn's the top stage or beginning stage, the awareness part of the funnel. You want to get their attention, but you want to siphon it to an email list, to your website, and then an email list because you own that email list, right? It's like real estate. It's an asset that you can market to for practically nothing. I mean, sure, you have to pay for maybe sending emails, but it's dirt cheap compared to what ad spend is on a social network. And you can email them multiple times. You can segment them. You can, build a relationship with these people, but you own it. So no one can take that reach away from you. Only the people who you're emailing can take it away from you. But that's a much different dynamic than LinkedIn just turning off the hose and saying, no, you built up 5,000 connections, but now we're only going to show your posts to 50 unless you pay us $50 every time you post. And that makes the ROI of marketing a little more difficult to work out.
And unfortunately, we're not seeing any indications at all of Microsoft moving in that direction, which is great. And so, today I consider the network you've built on LinkedIn to be part of the audience that you own. But long term, you have to convert it to email because you don't want your business dependent on something that, exactly what you're talking about, something that can be taken away from you. And it's this asset is the most undervalued asset in every business, the audience that you own, that you can talk to without having to pay anybody to do so. And the great news is you can do that on LinkedIn today. So you should take full advantage of it. But what I love about LinkedIn and B2B is that you can actually, particularly if you're in a niche, it's completely realistic to build a network of every ideal prospect for your business and connect directly to them and be able to talk to them forever after. But because we're in this unique time period where we can do that, we want to take advantage of that and get as much of that audience over to your email list as possible, because one, it means we've pulled them further in, we have a deeper relationship with them. And two, it's adding to the value of this really great asset that is this audience that you own and control.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some stats. There's 90 million LinkedIn users who are senior level influencers, and 63 million of those are in decision making positions. So LinkedIn's definitely, you can find exactly who you want to talk to, right? And actually talk to them. But they probably also have a lot of connections. And then if you can pull them to your website and show them what you're all about, and then get them on your email list and talk to them directly, that's top marketing right there. And you're right. There's no indication that LinkedIn's going to turn off the organic reach. And I would almost bet that they might never do that, especially seeing what happened to Facebook and how, yeah, there's a lot of people on Facebook, but no one's really using it right now, right? Like people still spend ads on it. But in the B2B world, I don't really see it as like viable. I don't ever really recommend it. I mean, yeah, we'll post on there for you. It's good to be on there, but Google ads,
We really do it
LinkedIn.
for SEO purposes.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's just another place to be present, show Google that we're alive and kicking. What is going to happen to LinkedIn, and we do see this, is that they're going to constantly improve the algorithm in order to keep people engaged. And so the quality of your content, the bar is just going to keep getting set higher and higher. So we talk about how the cost is low in terms that, because there isn't a media cost for sending. For email, it's nominal. There isn't one for LinkedIn. The cost is the process. It's creating really great content consistently over and over again, and then being really good at knowing how to put that content out there and follow up on the data. That's what the real cost is.
That's a really great point, actually. You're right. That is, and LinkedIn's becoming that even now. It's much more of a content platform. In a way, it's much more like a B2B Twitter or B2B YouTube, where you kind of go there to consume business specific and marketing specific content. And people are getting pretty good at it too. But I hadn't thought about that, but that's a really interesting insight. So yeah, the cost is whatever it costs you to make great content, which doesn't have to be a lot if you can write yourself or film videos or however you can do that. But you're right, that is going to be the cost of entry. And that's actually why I go to LinkedIn oftentimes, is to see what these other CEOs and marketing professionals, like, what are they posting? And they're finding really interesting ways to tell like stories about like especially in interesting times, about their employees and their customers. And when people send them questions and how they, like, I saw this one the other day, and someone said something to the CEO, like, oh, well, we don't want, like, that doesn't have as much like monetary value to us. And he said something like, well, we're not worried about that right now. We're just trying to build like, value, and we're trying to goodwill. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And especially that he put that out there. And I think it's going to change the culture of business a lot. You see a lot of these CEOs starting to, just like you too, starting to put out positive stuff, like not the Steve Jobs type leadership, but positivity. And that's really interesting. And just because of Sales Navigator, I don't think that LinkedIn is going to like turn that organic reach down, because especially if you bought Sales Navigator, it's pretty expensive. It's pretty great, but it's also expensive. And so I don't think they need to do that as much. So
I honestly think it's great value, because for $80 a month,
yeah,
you can find every prospect you want for your business. I mean, there are a few niches where we only find a portion of the audience that we need on LinkedIn, but for the vast majority of the clients that we work with, everybody they want to talk to is just sitting there on LinkedIn. And so for that $80 a month, you have the ability to figure out who they are and reach out to them. It's your time investment to make those connections and then create great content. And, and that of course is the core of what we have seen that works. So, it doesn't even make sense to get started unless you're really going to commit to do it consistently over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's multiple times a week if you can handle it. There's ways that we have an episode on content creation, curation, and remixing. Go check that out. That kind of explains how you can come up with a lot of content. You want to have a regular schedule. It's making content is, I think it's interesting. There's this book, I think by his name, Stephen Pinksfield or something, The War of Art, which is interesting, a play on the art of war. But it talks about, there's, I think, a great quote in there where he says, I only write when I'm inspired. I just happen to be inspired every day at 8 a.m. And that's really, if you want to create great content on LinkedIn, that's kind of what you got to do, is just get posting, make great stuff on a consistent schedule. Go listen to that other episode and start making content for LinkedIn. But don't forget, you want to get them to your email list eventually, because you're exposed on LinkedIn. You're vulnerable. They could turn it off. Microsoft makes weird business decisions sometimes, as we all know. So you do want to get them to your email marketing, and then take that same content, post it on your blog on your website, and then tell people via email and LinkedIn that, hey, I have new content on my website, and try to get them there, engage them in a conversation there. That's really the proper sequencing, if you talk about it, and the proper for the place where people are in the funnel. And that's what we see works really well.
Yeah, and in the other episode you're talking about is we're just talking about exactly how we're able to create so much content in a cost effective way. And one thing about this issue with LinkedIn is that, you know, we don't see a lot of value coming from the company page. That doesn't mean we don't create one. It doesn't mean that, you know, we don't like having followers there. But the interaction and engagement happens with individuals. That's why we're on LinkedIn. We see it most effective with the executive team. So the network that you're building is for each individual on the executive team. And that is a risk, because if somebody leaves the company, that network goes with them. So there's a very real way in which that can happen. Now, if it's your company and you're doing it for you as the owner, as the CEO, that's the place to start. But over time, we almost always end up getting to sort of the rest of the management team. And so that's just something to keep into account when you're thinking about your strategy. Because one of the best things you can do is figure out, well, who are all the different roles that we need to reach in our client prospects? And let's optimize a different person within the company to reach out to each of those roles. So this is how you use LinkedIn for account-based marketing. And it's amazingly effective. You just have to take into account that the network you're building is tied to each one of those people.
Yeah, that is a vulnerability, but it really works. And talk about the company page a little bit. I wish they would kind of just put those together. The company page, the one thing it has over the personal page is it gives you analytics, but we don't see the kind of engagement necessarily on a company page. It's much more like, I want to talk to Bill Bice, or I want to talk to whoever it is direct. Like when I see their post, maybe it's not, necessarily always correct, but I feel like they're posting it, or they had something to do with it. So it's probably their voice or something, where you just, even if it's the same post on a company page, it doesn't feel the same, but you do get more analytics on a company page. So just some how-to is, we typically will post on the company page and then repost on a personal page, or vice versa, just so we can try to get both of those, so we can get the analytics, but also maybe the engagement factor. That is one, if LinkedIn is listening, maybe they are listening, why don't you just combine those, or give us the analytics from the company page also on the personal page? That would,
and we get analytics at the personal level, but they make it more difficult to get them.
Yeah.
And it's organized in a way that you can't access it in the clean fashion that you can on the company page, and you can't automate getting it, which is
Right.
particularly frustrating. So we spend a lot of time going through individual profiles and evaluating each post in order to understand how it's performing.
Yeah, it's a very manual process, unfortunately. But I mean, that makes sense from their business standpoint. They don't want you just to be able to pull data, right? Data is the new oil. So they make it a little bit difficult to work with them on that front, but it makes sense. Maybe they'll open up one day, but a lot of social medias don't let you do that. So I wouldn't hold my breath on that.
Yeah, I mean, we literally, this is part of our process, is manually going through and compiling that data, because we have to have it. We're all about the data. You can't understand what's going on without it. So
Exactly.
the answer to the question, email or LinkedIn is
Both.
got to do both. There just
Got to
isn't
do both.
choice. In fact, the right way to do it, quite frankly, is you create content once and it goes everywhere. It goes on your website,
Exactly.
goes on email, goes on LinkedIn. So if you stop thinking about it as separate streams and think about it as one integrated whole, it makes it a whole lot easier to do it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. And you can break it up and chop it up and make it more native, as they might say. Like, you can't take a whole article and obviously post it on Twitter, but you can do that on LinkedIn. But should you, like, there's a whole debate there, but really you should just make your content and then fit it to where it needs to go. And if you can post it, and then interlink with it all and try to get them to your email list. Ultimately, you want them on your email list and your website. But if you have them as a connection on LinkedIn and you can DM them and build an actual relationship, that works pretty well too. But we can't quite yet send messages to everyone like you can with an email. And so you'd have to go through and pretty much manually do that. There's some automated solutions.
And you don't want to.
And you don't want to. Yeah.
And so what you're talking about with DM is direct messaging on LinkedIn, and doing some of that across your network over time. Particularly, LinkedIn is actually really good at showing you who in your network is very active on LinkedIn. And so it's great to use that to figure out who to reach out to. And it's amazing how effective it is if you put the time into it.
Absolutely. And this is really a build the well before you're thirsty kind of thing with your email list and LinkedIn. Work on your LinkedIn, but build your email list. I have clients sometimes, they're like, I think I have this, that, I don't know if I've ever used it. And it's like, we need to get that going before, a year from now, LinkedIn could do something, or it could, maybe Microsoft go, who knows what could happen. So build the well before you're thirsty is a good note to leave on, I think.
Good advice, Luke. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the B2B Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. Join us each Monday for new episodes and visit boomtime.com to listen to prior episodes and check out episode notes. Have a marketing question you want answered? Email us at podcast@boomtime.com or tweet us at boomtime_online, and we'll answer your questions on air.